In a quiet house in North Palm Beach, Florida, a borzoi named Crispin began behaving in a way his owner had never seen before. Crispin was calm by nature, elegant and reserved, the kind of dog who moved through rooms silently like he was floating rather than walking. But during the final days of Beverly's mother's life, something changed. Every time the homemaid finished feeding and cleaning the elderly woman, Crispin would slowly walk into the bedroom, approach the bed, smell her breath, nuzzle gently into her hair, and lie down beside her. He did this over and over again, almost ritualistically, as if he were responding to something nobody else in the room could perceive. Beverly quietly wondered whether her dog somehow sensed that her mother was dying. Most people hearing a story like this immediately reach for the same explanation. Dogs have a sixth sense. They know things humans cannot know. They feel death approaching in some mysterious, almost supernatural way. But modern science suggests something far stranger may actually be happening. Dogs are not psychic, and they are not communicating with something beyond human understanding. What makes their behavior so remarkable is that it is grounded in biology, chemistry, and sensory abilities so advanced they can seem magical from the outside. As the human body begins shutting down, organ systems stop processing chemicals correctly. Tiny changes begin leaking through breath, sweat, skin, and body odor in ways humans cannot consciously detect. To us, these shifts remain invisible. But to a dog, they may become overwhelmingly loud. In many cases, the dog is not predicting death before it happens. The dog is already perceiving the biological process as it unfolds in real time. That possibility changes the entire emotional meaning of stories like Crispin's. The dog staying beside the bed may not be responding to something mystical at all. Instead, he may be immersed in a hidden sensory world surrounding the person he loves, detecting signals no human nervous system was ever built to notice. To understand why dogs sometimes behave differently around dying or seriously ill people, you first have to understand what happens inside the human body when its chemistry begins to fail. A healthy body constantly regulates thousands of chemical reactions at once. The liver filters waste from the bloodstream, the kidneys remove toxins and excess compounds, and the pancreas helps stabilize blood sugar and metabolic balance. But when these systems begin shutting down, even gradually, the chemistry of the body changes in measurable ways. Compounds that are normally filtered out start escaping through breath, sweat, skin, and pores. Scientists call these substances volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. Humans can detect only a tiny fraction of them, and usually only when the changes become severe enough to create obvious odors. Dogs, however, are operating inside an entirely different sensory universe. Certain forms of organ failure produce remarkably distinct chemical signatures. When the liver begins failing, compounds such as dimethyl sulfide and methyl mercaptan build up in the body, creating a smell historically described as sweet, rotten, or sulfur-like. Ancient Roman physicians even gave it a name more than 2,000 years ago, fetor hepaticus, often called the breath of the dead. Kidney failure can produce an ammonia-like odor similar to bleach, because the body can no longer remove nitrogen waste properly. Pancreatic failure and severe metabolic dysfunction may create sweet acetone-like smells, often compared to nail polish remover. Medical professionals are trained to recognize some of these odors because they can signal dangerous physiological decline. But dogs detect these compounds at concentrations humans cannot even begin to perceive. The reason lies in the extraordinary structure of canine olfaction. Humans possess roughly 5 million smell receptors inside the nose. Dogs have around 300 million. The olfactory epithelium, the tissue responsible for detecting odor molecules, is vastly larger in dogs than in humans, giving them dramatically more sensory surface area. Even more remarkable, the portion of a dog's brain devoted to analyzing smell is proportionally around 40 times larger than ours. Dogs do not merely smell better than humans in the way a telescope sees farther than the naked eye. Their entire nervous system is built around chemical perception. They actively sniff 5 to 10 times per second, continuously pulling scent particles across their receptors like living analytical machines. Their sensitivity to certain compounds can reach concentrations as low as 1 part per trillion. That level is almost impossible to visualize. It means a dog can sometimes detect a single drop of a substance diluted across enormous spaces that humans would perceive as completely odorless. This changes the way we should think about canine behavior around illness and death. What appears mysterious or supernatural from a human perspective may simply reflect a dog perceiving biological information we are physically incapable of sensing. When a dog refuses to leave someone's bedside, stares intensely at a particular area of the body, or reacts to a person who seems outwardly healthy, the dog may already be immersed in a shifting chemical landscape invisible to everyone else in the room. For years, stories about dogs detecting illness before doctors did were treated as emotional anecdotes, powerful but impossible to verify scientifically. Then researchers began testing whether canine detection abilities could actually be measured under controlled conditions, and the results became difficult to ignore. In High-in-Lair-Sar, scientists at the Pine Street Foundation in California designed one of the most influential experiments ever conducted on canine disease detection. They worked with 5 ordinary household dogs, 3 Labradors, and 2 Portuguese water dogs, and trained them to identify breath samples from cancer patients. The setup was carefully controlled. Some breath samples came from healthy individuals, while others came from patients diagnosed with lung or breast cancer. The dogs were given no visual clues, no behavioral signals, and no information except scent alone. What happened stunned researchers. The dogs identified breast cancer samples with approximately 88% accuracy and lung cancer samples with an astonishing 99% accuracy. Even more remarkable, the dogs detected cancer across multiple stages of disease progression, including early stages that are often difficult for humans to diagnose quickly. The implications were extraordinary because these were not genetically engineered laboratory animals or elite military detection dogs. They were family pets trained for only a relatively short period of time. That means the sensory hardware involved already existed naturally inside ordinary dogs living quietly in people's homes. The scientific importance of these findings goes far beyond cancer itself. The study demonstrated that dogs can reliably detect volatile organic compounds associated with disease long before those changes become obvious to human perception. Similar stories continue appearing in real life. One widely discussed case involved a woman named Kenzie and her rescue dog Sunny. One night, Sunny climbed onto the bed and pressed intensely against Kenzie's neck while whining and refusing to move away. The behavior felt unusual enough that Kenzie later sought medical attention after developing severe headaches. Doctors eventually discovered a dangerous brain aneurysm. Sunny had focused specifically on the exact area where a life-threatening vascular problem was developing, nearly a full day before the diagnosis was made. Cases like this feel almost impossible from a human perspective because people tend to think visually. If the body looks healthy and medical scans have not yet confirmed a problem, we assume nothing detectable exists. Dogs experience the world differently. They navigate reality through chemistry first. Long before visible symptoms emerge, metabolic changes, inflammation, tumors, vascular stress, and organ dysfunction can begin releasing microscopic chemical compounds into breath and skin. Humans remain blind to these signals, but dogs are constantly monitoring them every second they breathe near us. This transforms the entire conversation about dogs sensing illness or death. The phenomenon is no longer just folklore or emotional storytelling. Modern research strongly suggests dogs are biologically capable of detecting physical disease processes at stages where even advanced medical systems sometimes struggle to identify them. One of the biggest misunderstandings about dogs sensing death is that people imagine it as a single mysterious moment, as if a dog suddenly realizes someone is about to die through instinct alone. But the science suggests something much more structured is happening. In reality, there appear to be several different biological timelines during which dogs can detect changes in the human body, and each one operates differently depending on the illness and the chemistry involved. The first timeline is the shortest and most dramatic, hours before death during acute organ failure or late-stage hospice decline. At this stage, the body's chemistry begins collapsing rapidly. The liver, kidneys, lungs, and pancreas stop processing waste correctly, causing volatile organic compounds to flood outward through breath, sweat, and skin at concentrations humans cannot perceive. To a dog, however, these chemical changes may become overwhelming. This is often the stage where dogs suddenly refuse to leave a person's bedside, stare intensely at them, or begin behaving differently in ways families later remember clearly. The second timeline unfolds over days. Instead of a sudden collapse, the body chemistry shifts gradually as illness progresses. This is likely what happened with Crispin and Beverly's mother. A dog living in the same house is constantly exposed to the person's normal scent profile every day, meaning they are not detecting illness in isolation. They are comparing changes over time. Every breath, every shift in skin chemistry, every small metabolic drift becomes part of an ongoing sensory pattern the dog tracks unconsciously. Humans cannot notice these gradual changes because our smell perception is far too weak and inconsistent. Dogs, however, live inside a continuous stream of chemical information. They may detect subtle worsening days before visible symptoms become obvious to caregivers or even doctors. The third timeline is the most difficult for people to understand, because it can extend for weeks or even months. Certain cancers, aneurysms, infections, and metabolic disorders begin releasing abnormal volatile compounds long before standard medical imaging detects a problem. Dogs responding to these early-stage changes are not predicting the future. They are detecting biological processes already underway far earlier than humans realize. This helps explain why some dogs begin fixating on a specific area of the body, suddenly become clingy, or behave strangely around someone who appears completely healthy. The key idea is that dogs are not reacting randomly. Their behavior may be connected to real physiological changes already occurring beneath the surface. What feels supernatural to humans may simply reflect the fact that dogs inhabit a sensory world dominated by chemistry, comparison, and constant pattern recognition far beyond anything our own nervous systems can perceive. For many people, stories about dogs sensing death become emotionally complicated because their own dog never seemed to react when someone they loved was dying. No dramatic staring, no unusual behavior, no refusal to leave the bedside. And in quiet moments afterward, some people begin wondering whether their dog simply did not notice or did not care. But the science suggests the reality is far more nuanced than that. The chemical signals associated with illness and dying are not always equally strong. A sudden organ collapse in hospice may produce intense shifts in body chemistry that become obvious to a dog within hours, while a slow decline managed with medication can create much quieter changes spread across weeks or months. Some dogs react visibly. Others respond subtly in ways humans barely notice at the time. A dog sleeping in a different room, quietly hovering nearby, eating less, following someone more closely, or becoming unusually calm may already be responding to changes humans cannot detect. We tend to expect dramatic Hollywood moments because those are the stories people remember most vividly. But canine attachment often expresses itself through quiet presence rather than spectacle. This brings the story back to Crispin beside Beverly's mother. Day after day, the Borzoi walked into her room, smelled her breath, rested beside her, and stayed there calmly, while her body chemistry slowly changed in ways invisible to everyone else in the house. Modern science now offers a powerful explanation for what he may have been experiencing. Dogs exist inside a sensory world dominated by chemical information humans cannot access. Every breath, every metabolic shift, every small organ change creates signals moving constantly through the air around them. To Crispin, those changes may have been louder than voices, louder than televisions, louder than anything humans in the room could consciously perceive. The remarkable part is not simply that dogs can detect these signals. It is that they often choose to stay close when they do. Dogs are not magical creatures gifted with supernatural powers. They are extraordinarily sensitive biological instruments shaped through thousands of years of evolution beside humans. Their nervous systems evolved to monitor our chemistry, emotions, movements, and physical states with astonishing precision. And because of attachment, many dogs respond to those signals not with fear or avoidance, but with closeness. In the end, a dog remaining beside a dying person may not be evidence of mysticism at all. It may be evidence of something more real and more profound. A species so deeply connected to human life that it can sense the invisible biological changes unfolding inside the people it loves.